Hi guys, welcome to Delaware Studios. We'll be talking about auto backup for Android. Users invest a lot of time customizing settings in the apps. Restoring settings data for users when they upgrade to a new device is an important aspect of ensuring a great user experience. It's therefore important to minimize the number of steps that a user has to go through to pick up where they left off on their previous device. So we will be talking about auto backup to restore an existing user's settings data on a new device, which makes sure you back up the following user settings. For example, any settings modified by the user, such as a preference screen, whether the user has turned ringtones and notifications on or off, any Boolean flags that track if the user has dismissed the welcome screen, or an introductory tooltips. So these are where you could actually use auto backup. So we're actually going to be using it on a login interaction. Well, we're going to learn how to exclude files from the auto backup using Android Studio XML and implement the login using the int auto backup. We'll also test this on the device, which I'll be showing in the screencast. So I'll implore you to use Android Studio 3.0 upward to actually get this set up, and it's only supporting Android devices running Android 6.0, which is Marshmallow, API 23 and above. So I'll be heading straight to Android Studio to actually get this started. Right in the build Gradle, you need the common dependency, the app compat design and support. You're good to go with this, and I'll be showing you the layout files, which is just login interface and email and password, sign in or you register, which we have that coded already. So we're actually not going to be communicating with an API to do this. It's just for us to test the backup. So this is the code wrapped around the linear layout with the progress bar to actually show response, the scroll view to wrap the text input with the edit text. Let's get to look at this more clearly. And the buttons for the sign in or register. So we have that set up. Cool. Moving further, we have the activity logged in. This is like a detail after you might have logged in successfully. You have that set up, which is mere text view and a logout button. Cool. From here, we'll be headed straight to the Java classes. You have 3 classes to intermingle with: the logged in activity, the login activity, and the preference utilities to actually save the boolean, the key values to the shared preference. In the login activity, you'll be having the core, where we'll set up a dummy authentication, which is hard coded as I've said earlier, an email and password, just 2 array string called dummy credentials. So we're actually going to use them. You can use them to actually get access, so you won't have to register. Just let's move further. The autocomplete, which we'll be expecting, and then the detects with the view, the progress view, and the login form view or setup. You have to initialize those views in the onCreate method to actually get them initialize: the button, the login form view, the progress view. Cool. You move ahead to implement the login int. That's just what will get us back when you would have uninstalled the application and install back. The int will remember all settings, all useful parameters which has been saved earlier. So we have that set up, the accounts in, and the attempts to sign in or register the account specified by the login form. If there are form errors, probably invalid email, missing fields, and so on. So get the first attempt, you set the error to null. You store the values at the time by extracting the fields, the email and password, to the 2 variables which you actually use to pass to the user login tags, which is actually going to be an async tag that's actually going to get that in the background. So you show the progress spinner and kick off a background task to perform the user login attempt. Now to show the progress UI and that hides the login form, where you're trying to compare SDKs now with the honeycomb, that's for previous compatibility. You need to actually set this up as well. Let's get to look at the user login where you extend the async tag. So you want to do a background call, which you have to vary the doing background method, attempt to authenticate against a network. So probably if you really want to use an API to could actually do that here, share the URL with the parameters, probably the body, the header, the key, pass it along with the string, and you get the callback. But now we're going to actually simulate a network access by using a thread to give a 2-second, which is a 2000 millisecond, and which the dummy credential will be assessed if it's actually equals to what has been set in the string array. We have right there the email and password. Cool. We have that done. On post execute, that's the result callback you get after it's probably successful or a failure. So if it's successful, it's going to pass the email and password to a method called the finish login. If not, it's going to set an error. That's the login process actually has some problem. Cool. In the finish login, let's see the further use of the string values. This is when you get to save them to the preference utilities, which is the shared preference. So for the sake of this example, we assume that the key is the password, which could actually be gotten from. These are callbacks that you get from the server to actually save the authentication of that login process. So we have that called into the login activity as a start activity to another page, probably a detail page. Cool. It finishes up the login activity process, and the logged in activity is just going to be let's say a detailed view of what we have, where we have the logout button and the logout buttons precisely that actually logs out from the app. Cool. Let's get to look at the pref utils. This the core shared preferences where we will need to set up the login details. These are finer strings which are declared once. We have the pref app info which is for the backup app info, where you have the account name, the account auth key, the account name int. If you're familiar with we have the sync adapter, you would have set up account name right there with your sync. Probably you're going to have an account right there in the settings. So this is just a tweak from that full implementation. Now the pref utils class is an empty constructor. We have the needs login to actually check whether the app should show the login screen or not, and it takes a context where you get to initialize the pref log and so on. You set the login account, call the edit, you put the string, the key values. If you're familiar with shared preference, you set using key value pairs. So a key identifies the value which is being called. So you have that in the put string, and you apply that, you get shared preference. You do that for the name, the auth key, the name int, and at logout you remove them. So that's just what you're going to do, whereby you create the int afterwards. So cool. With this, we've actually covered a lot, and there's one more aspect that actually gets all this done completely. You find that right there in the manifest, where you need to actually allow backup true and allow full backup to an XML file called the backup descriptor. Get to look at the content of this backup descriptor to actually let us understand what we have there. This is where you have the domain and the path to the login details XML. You have that set up in the Pref tools as well. These are the login details over here. That's the backup. So it's actually going to get that backed up before, even if you uninstall your app, you still get all those settings, all those preferences, all those boolean, all those key value pairs back to actually get your app set up immediately when users are trying to install back after they might have uninstalled or probably change the device to install the application. So cool. From here, I'll be showing the screencasts, which we're actually going to look. It's quite smooth on an emulator. I'll implore you to try it out and try it out on a real device, which I'll be sharing the source code. You can pick it up from the GitHub link and set it up in Android Studio 3.0 and upward and get it done. Thank you guys for hanging out with me throughout the session, and stand by for the screencast so you could understand how the flow is. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye for now.